everybody. Welcome back again. My name is Paul Moorhead, and this is Moorhead Media Photoshop tutorial. Today, we're going to be looking at the type tool. So the type tool can be found over here. It's close to the bottom, and it's this T symbol here. You can see it says horizontal type tool, and T is also the hotkey, so it's very easy for us to find. And what we can do is that this is actually a pretty robust tool. So what we can do is there's a lot of different ways to use this. Essentially, we can create a new layer, or I can click and drag, and what this is doing is that's actually creating a type box. So it's actually designing the type to fit inside this box. And right away we can see we have this, these controls to work with. So now if I type, let's just go from, let's see how it looks. I'm typing in this text box. Having some trouble here seeing. I'm gonna hit let's see, let's get our black text. There's our text box. It seems to didn't want to do that, so let's try that again. Type. All right, so for whatever reason it's not, because I'm using an enormous font. I'm sorry. So I was using a very, very, very large font and I didn't see that. So let's actually go back in, and if you see, I typed something and deleted it, and it put in some standard font. So let's just put in test glyph Mayan, and that's the name of the piece that I just sort of came up with, because this is based on the TV test pattern. And so here we go. So here's our type. If I hold down Command, you can see here's the box of our type. And so we want to fit this text so that the text box, I don't want to do that. I want to change the size of the text box itself. So let's see. Okay, that's adjusting this thing. That's not what we want. All right, so essentially text box Mayan, and we can see right away we have our different options up here. The very first one is switching between horizontal and vertical type. That's really useful. That's kind of a new feature in Photoshop. And then we have our fonts. We can see if we click this down arrow, it allows us to select a whole bunch of different fonts that are there initially, and you can download a lot more fonts on the Adobe site. There's a whole page that just allows you to explore different fonts. So let's just select one for now that we like. And for some reason, it wants us to select either, we can click on the layer and we can select a font, and it will actually show us a sample of what that looks like, which is really great. So I'll just choose Compass. Or if I hold Command A, I select all the type, and then I can click here in this little window, and I can actually use the up and down arrows to preview this type to see okay, that's a cool font, I like that one. Or click on the type layer, click on the name of the font, and again, toggle through. Just look at some of these fonts. It's a really easy way to do it. So we're kind of worlds away from getting into some of this thing, some of what the fonts can, some of what the type tool can do, and we're already seeing how powerful it is. So let's go in and let's just say we want to make this whole font 3 rows, and we want it equally spaced, and we want it to look so it fills up this whole thing, right? So what I can do is I can hit return, and it immediately, because it was such a huge font, it's putting it, this is the leading, and it's putting the leading of the text at such a huge, it's like 191 instead of 24. So we need to bring up our options, our character and paragraph options. So we click this little guy here. It's also located over here in the P paragraph symbol. And let's just bring this out. And we can see, we can see that we're having some technical difficulties here, trying to get the distance between the space of the type. All right, so where is that stuff? Should be in the properties menu. Hold on a second. No, properties. Here we go. Okay, I'm sorry. So it actually can be found in the properties menu, and the properties menu is basically was like attached to another window. So we go into our properties. We can see we have some options showing us like how big this leading was. It's 171. It's huge. So let's just type in 24 and it'll bring it right back to the current font size we're using. So that's nice. And let's just bring our layers palette out so that it's going to be docked so that we can access it when we want to instead of having it disappear on us. Good. So when we click on the test glyph Maya type here, we can do a few different things. There's a lot of shortcuts and a lot of cool things with text. So first thing is we can scale the text up, and you can either click here, you can type, you can say I want it to be 50. You see how messy that's getting already. You can undo. You can also click and drag in that little T area, which is kind of a really top secret little thing. You can also click here and select some preset options. So those are all really useful. So obviously we are getting into the same problem as we did before, where the leading is sort of getting crazy. So let's go back to parent properties and see, okay, we're using a 48 font. Let's make it 48 point leading between the layers, between the characters. That looks pretty good, but still it's a little spaced, too spaced out, too close to the edges. So let's change the leading again. And how are we going to do that? You guessed it. Go over the characters for leading, and we're going to just drag it down so we can get closer to what we want. Perfect. And then get the move tool out, center it, and there we go. So that's one way to use the text. That's a really fun way to use the text. Another really amazing thing about text is text can actually be linked to a vector path. And so what does that mean? Okay, so let's just say, for example, I want to type, and I want to type around this circle. So there's a few ways to do this. One way is to actually go in. We were just talking about this tool earlier, but we didn't really get into it too much. Go in and get our ellipse tool, which is going to create a vector path. And before I get too crazy, I'm going to delete these other layers that are just, I don't know where they are. They're just sort of somewhere. And I'm actually going to create a no fill stroke black of 5 is okay. And I'm going to make a shape, an ellipse shape from the very center, holding shift to the edge of where my this circular radius image is. And I just I let go, I hit OK. And so we can see there it says ellipse 1. So now when I hit T, and you can see I hover over the edge, see that little icon, how it's turning into that circle, it's turning into a wave through that little like bar. That's the separating the text bar. When I click on the edge, it's going to map. It's actually going to create text that wraps around the edge. This is such a cool feature. It's really amazing that Photoshop can do this. And so like, we can just type something. Let's learn something new about Photoshop! Exclamation point. Cool. And it's a little, I want it to actually go on the inside of the circle. So I'm going to hit select all. And I'm going to go into my type tool. Cancel. Yeah, I want it to be solid. I want it to be wrapped around. That's all good stuff. Let's see, where's the options, the paragraph options? Transform, optical, yeah, that's good. All right, well, I'm gonna actually decrease the size of this a little bit. It's too much. Or I can make it huge. That's kind of fun. But let's go something smaller. Let's go, yeah, 30, maybe 42. Okay, all right, good. So now there's a few things. If I hold down the command key, we can see it brings up this border, and this is the border of the actual type that's mapped to the outside of this path. And if I just hold command and bring it out to the very edge, you can see my cursor turns into a little double cursor. And this is actually going to allow me to rotate around this axis and change where I want the text to go. So it's pivoting around that center point. And let's just say I want it on this side of, just for example, let's just put it over here. And maybe I want it to be, maybe I want to make it smaller. So I'm going to actually scale it in, right? And let's go inside the circle just for the heck of it. Just see how that looks. Good. And then if I click, it's actually going to place those characters on the layer. So it's naming the layer based on what I typed, which is fine. Doesn't really matter. Let's hide these other ones. And so that's kind of cool. So now that we have the type, we can do all kinds of things with it. We can still change the font. We can even change the color. So if we just click the color menu, and it's popping up in my other window here. Let's make it white. Okay. There we go. Makes white text. Looks pretty good. And let's just say, I can even click back in here, select it. I can select all. I can just replace the type. I can just change it to something else. Let's just do Moorhead Media 2020 copyright. And I don't know, not every font has this, but you can essentially try it with Option or Alt G. It's gonna type. It worked. Awesome. Wow. You can type a copyright symbol, and that's really fun to for a lot of reasons. Because now you don't really need to copyright your work, but it's useful to have on your work just in case. Essentially, when you create something from scratch, if it's an original creative piece, it sort of automatically gets copyrighted. But for our purposes, let's just say that we wanted to put a copyright in here. And so there you go. That's one way to do it. Option G. And so this is a good way to think about type. So type can be, basically you can create a box of type. So if I, again, click and drag, and it's going to just create a box of random type. Before, the font was so big you couldn't see it. Now you can see it. So we can scale it down. Let's just play with this a little bit. Scale it down to I don't know, 24. And a white looks good for now. Let's go to properties. Let's change the height so that it's also matching the size. 24. All right, we like that. Let's hit the move tool, place it somewhere else, move it around. And now it's kind of looking good, but it's a little, let's say just we want to justify it to the edge here. So if we hit T and we come back here, we can get right justified text. And I just want to show you this tool. This is a really cool tool. So this isn't necessarily how I would justify this text to the edge of the circle, but it's fun. So we're going to try it. So let's select warp text. And over here, that was just the symbol here between the color and the text properties, the type properties thing. Here, warp text, you can select, let's just try bulge. See, it actually blew it up. And you can have fun with this. You can actually reverse it. So it's pinched, it's going to the center. So you can do some really cool stuff. Or let's just try inflate. And let's go out with it. There we go. So it's just kind of puffing into oblivion there, but you can see there's a lot of fun little things you can try. And so, for example, all right, let's play with this real quick. So let's bring back that text, the Testcliff Maya text, and let's try to fit this Testcliff Maya text inside of this symbol, really fit it in there so that it looks cool. So if we click this, the warp text, and we can even do, let's do we could do arch, but I don't want to. Arc is fun. Arc is kind of what I was thinking, but this is, so it's bowing on the top and bowing on the bottom. So technically a bulge would work or inflate would work. But I just want to show you what it would look like if I did an arc of text. So let's do an upper arc. See that it bulges up on the top and keeps the bottom the same. Or let's do an arc, a full arc. So it's actually wrapping around this central curved point, and we can reduce that because it's a little intense, too much intense for me. We can make it vertically arced instead of horizontally, but let's keep it for now. And this is kind of it doesn't necessarily work for everything, but it could look really cool if you have some sort of, spatial dynamic or something that's you want to add text to fabric, let's say. This would be a really fun way to explore that. So that's a super, super basic overview of the type tool in Photoshop. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned, and we're going to talk more about Photoshop Next time, we're going to go over vectors and how to import images into Illustrator.